Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:07 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Theo Wald joins us, former deputy assistant to President Trump. He was in the room as President Trump met with the family of Vanessa Guillen, the fallen soldier who's at the center of so much news today. Theo will tell us his perspective on that story. Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, is here at 5:30, and you can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Before we get to our next guest, I just want to play a piece of audio to set this up. In Detroit yesterday, Eminem, Marshall Mathers, was campaigning for Kamala Harris. And he said the reason he supports Kamala is because, you ready for this? She's the free speech candidate.
I also think that people shouldn't be afraid to express their opinions. And I don't think anyone wants an America where people are worried about retribution or what people will do if you make your opinion known. I think Vice President Harris supports a future for this country where these freedoms and many others will be protected and upheld.
He's getting it exactly backwards. Eminem. Speaking of election interference and threats to free speech, it turns out at least a couple of Brits are involved in trying to meddle on our election in a pretty substantial way right now. For more on that, Jason Snead joins us, the executive director of the Honest Elections Project. He's here. Jason, good to have you on the show, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, threats to speech. This week, we get a big report from journalists Paul Thacker and Matt Taibbi, and they say that a group called the Center for Countering Digital Hate, which was founded by a British political operative named Morgan McSweeney, has listed in its private documents their top goal of, quote, kill Musk's Twitter, as in Elon Musk. They're trying to shut down free speech. Jason, what's going on here?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that if the left doesn't control something, they want to try to shut it down. Or if it's a democratic institution that stands between them and their political agenda, then these days the left wants to discredit and delegitimize that particular institution. And I'm not in any way shocked or surprised that since Elon Musk has made clear that he's not part of the usual gang of San Francisco liberals that run various tech platforms, that now everybody almost worldwide who is part of the political left wants to try to kill his businesses. And it's particularly notable that on X, you've got a commitment from that platform, which is unique, to actually allowing for free speech. And that, of course, seems to be the scariest thing in the world to today's progressives.
Yeah, who are trying to lock down the debate and make it so that only globalist power is supported. Because when people have open conversations, why is it that Western civilization now has so many leaders who seem threatened by that?
Well, I think that there's been a push of late to actually try to censor speech that progressives disagree with. And they try to pretend that this is actually about policing misinformation or disinformation or something like that. But there's been a decidedly illiberal, anti-free speech mentality that we've seen crop up in just about every institution that the left controls, from college campuses onwards. There's just a desire to essentially shut down debate, and almost a belief or a perception on the left that, look, we're right and we're tired of talking about it. If you don't like what we have to say, then, don't talk about it at all. And I think that ultimately shows that, this thing that used to be sacred on the left, the First Amendment and the protection of free speech, is now seen as a very unwelcome hindrance to people that feel like they are in a position of political power and want to shut down the ability of other people to oppose their particular agendas. And it's worth noting, right, that the only reason that you need to have a First Amendment is to protect unpopular speech. So when the left was in the political minority, they rely on this. And now that they're in the political ascendancy, or at least perceive that they are, they want to shut down the First Amendment's protections for speech.
So as I mentioned, the Center for Countering Digital Hate was founded by a British political operative named Morgan McSweeney. Morgan McSweeney is credited with helping the rise of the current Prime Minister of the UK, and is now also apparently advising the Harris-Walz campaign on how they can win. So here you have someone who is involved in offering political advice here in the United States, as well as trying to take down one of President Trump's most well-known backers, Elon Musk. Are those things connected?
Well, I would certainly think it'd be reasonable to assume that they are. I think that the Labour Party in Britain is recognizing that they've got political fellow travelers in today's left here in the United States. And I frankly was a little bit surprised and shocked to read some of the reports that I was reading that members of the Labour Party are actually coming over here to engage in what is very clearly election interference to help the Harris campaign and to try to prevent Donald Trump from becoming the next president.
Yes.
Leaning on the scales of American politics so aggressively. There's a reason back in 1776 that we had a revolution. We didn't want the British controlling American politics anymore. It doesn't seem like today's Labour Party has got that message.
No, not at all. In fact, to your point, just a couple of weeks ago now, about a week ago, from the National News Desk, their wire service, they report British Labour Party sending staff to campaign for Harris in U.S. swing states. The left-leaning British Labour Party is sending nearly 100 members to U.S. battleground states to campaign for Vice President Kamala Harris ahead of the presidential election. They say Sophia Patel is the head of operations for the Labour Party, and she shared these plans via LinkedIn last week. She claimed current and former Labour Party staff are going to be targeting key swing states like North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. If we go back in time, Jason Snead, to say, let's pick 2016, if 100 Russians had arrived and started door knocking for Donald Trump, what would the left be saying about that?
Well, that's exactly right. If people from Vladimir Putin's Duma started showing up to knock on doors, or Xi Jinping's Communist Party started knocking on doors, I suspect that the media and the left would be apoplectic. And yet here we are with very clearly foreign agents coming to the United States, picking sides in a presidential contest, and the left seems to frankly not want to talk about it, and neither do most folks in the media. And really alarmingly to me is the fact that this is actually only the latest instance where the American left has been very comfortable with exploiting foreign interference in our elections for their own political gain. In fact, if you can believe it, one of the largest left-wing dark money groups in the country, an organization called the 1630 Fund, which spends hundreds of millions of dollars every single election cycle to advance Democratic causes, to elect Democrats, and to push ballot issues that lock abortion and election law changes into state constitutions, has been hoovering up money from foreign nationals, and it has raised almost $250 million from a single foreign billionaire, and then they're using this money to influence our politics. And when states like Ohio earlier this year tried to pass laws to ban this type of foreign influence, you know what happens? Every Democrat in the state legislature votes against a ban on foreign interference because they're using it to advance their own political agendas.
I've noticed that what seems to be happening, everything we're talking about really involves global power centers now. It's not just really about the power centers in the United States, but instead global alliances. I remember back to a couple years ago when Hillary Clinton was urging the European Union to pass legislation to censor the internet. They called it the Digital Services Act. That it seems to me that the international left is basically trying to leverage the laws of any country they can possibly get their hands on in order to create a global censorship regime. So if you have like a big social media company and you've got the entire EU putting the screws to you, it really starts to create a culture of censorship inside of your company.
Well, that's certainly right, and there's been a lot of instances where there is a great degree of comfort with what looks an awful lot like a censorship regime. And even here in the United States, there have been attempts by the government to essentially get around and skirt the protections of the First Amendment by getting private companies to censor speech that the government can't directly control and essentially do their dirty work for them. So there is this desire, I think, to shut down and to stifle differences of opinion by claiming that these things are misinformation or disinformation, and the willingness of the left to say that government bureaucrats in this or any country should be in a position to decide what is truth and what is false is, I think, a very alarming proposition. And look, we know how this is going to wind up getting used. Just look at it in the context of the election cycle, right? If you are living in a state that has a voter ID law, the left says that ID law exists only to disenfranchise minority voters. Now, the data does not support that. The polling says that almost 90% of Americans support ID laws, but the left says that a voter identification law is designed to suppress the vote, and anyone who disagrees with that is branded as spreading misinformation. And that's how they will use powers to censor speech. It's not about actually identifying truth. It's about protecting the liberal narratives that they are pushing in politics today.
I mean, we're also kind of living through a real life example yet again of the way that the media and again, the left allows certain stories to be told and then stops others from being expressed. So, for instance, this Atlanta kerfuffle over the last 24 hours, Jeffrey Goldberg writes a thin and almost entirely disproven allegation about Donald Trump. And every news outlet is covering it aggressively. Every social media company is promoting it aggressively, all to serve, obviously, a political purpose. But if you go back to 2020, the Hunter Biden story comes out, which is far more credible, far more legitimate, was actually confirmed by the FBI as being legit. And all of the powers that be, the very same, suffocated that story and censored it into oblivion at the behest of the government. We're really living through a remarkable time, Jason Snead.
Well, what I find to be particularly remarkable is that when things like the Hunter Biden laptop story get censored, and you clearly see companies and the media putting their thumb on the scales, after the fact, when they are forced to recognize that they made a mistake, they will say it was just that, it was a mistake. But the problem with that is that every single time, the mistakes all run in the same direction. And so it starts to look a lot less like some organic, innocent mistake and a lot more like clear instances of very deliberate bias and very deliberate attempts to put their thumb on the scales in favor of one political party over the other.
Big time. It's a power protection racket. Jason Snead with the Honest Elections Project. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate your time today. All right. Let's go to Doug calling in from Clifton now on line 9. Doug, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon. Listen, it absolutely drives me crazy when I hear them make comparisons of Donald Trump to Hitler. I mean, the reality is if you wanted to talk about somebody who was closer to responsible for killing Jews and Americans, that would be the Biden-Harris administration. It's because of their failure to fulfill and maintain the oil and sanctions against Iran. That's what's filled their bank accounts with billions of dollars. And it's the Iranians that constantly chant death to America, death to Israel, death to Jews. And by that alone, they always say that Iran is the biggest funder of terrorism around the world.
Yeah.
But because Biden-Harris is funding them, that de facto makes Biden-Harris the biggest funders of terrorism around the world.
They unleashed the floodgates.
They unleashed it. They are not fulfilling. They are violating the Taylor Force Act, which says United States money should not go to governments or organizations that fund terrorists. That's the Palestinians, which are giving money to families of terrorists against Jews. That's what the Harris-Biden administration is going.
This point you're making is so good, Doug, and for a number of reasons. I'm looking at some of my buddies today, including Chris Plant. He just posted a short while ago on X. He said, Trump was such a great friend and ally to Israel. They named a section of the Golan Heights, quote, the Trump Heights. Yet these mentally ill Democrats want to think he's a fan of Hitler.
You can actually go to the White House gift shop and buy a challenge coin that commemorates the portion of the Golan Heights being named after Donald Trump. I own one.
And then, Chris Stegall, this is a good one. Ready? Remember that time Hitler wore an apron in the drive-through line and danced to the Village People? That was wild, huh? That's a great line. And here's another one. Somebody named Madlaw writes, old enough to remember when Hitler moved the Israeli embassy to Jerusalem. This is, example after example here, Doug, of just how ridiculous this all is.
Which, by the way, Biden said he would not have done.
So you've been keeping track, Doug, in other words.
Oh, I could keep going, but I hear the music playing.
The music is playing us out. It's like an award show. Congratulations, Doug. You're the big winner. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Bye.
you being on the air. All right. Hey, coming up, the election rigging continues. In the last half hour, this news just always falls into my lap. The Biden-Harris administration now abusing its power once again, going after Elon Musk. They don't like that people are registering to vote because they're disproportionately Trump voters. So now it's time to punish Elon. Details ahead. Hey, good afternoon. 4:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up 5 o'clock, Thea Wald is here, former deputy assistant to President Trump. He was president at President Trump's meeting with the Guillen family back in 2020. He assisted with translation in the room. And he says this Atlantic report, the one that the left thinks is going to take down Trump, is utter garbage. Theo's got the details ahead. And then at 5:30, the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, joins us ahead of a big rally this Saturday in Virginia. The details on that coming up. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We've been talking this week about Elon Musk's big announcement that he's going to be giving away $1 million a day to registered voters who sign a simple petition, one that says they support the First and Second Amendment. You have a chance at winning $1 million. A random person is going to be given $1 million each day. He's been doling that money out. And, of course, it's a great way to make sure that people are registered to vote because they see this petition, like they say, hey, I want a chance at this $1 million. How do I do it? Well, only registered voters can sign the petition. Okay, so they run off, register to vote, they get in. Now, is he paying for people to register to vote? No. You could be registered to vote for years, and you can be eligible to win this prize. Is he paying for people to vote? No. No, he's not. He's just saying if you sign the petition, you have a chance to win $1 million. That's it. And I guarantee you he had his attorneys look over this to make sure everything was on the up and up according to all of the available laws in all of the available states and certainly at the level of the federal government. In fact, yesterday we talked to one of the leading experts on this. Was it yesterday? I think it was. Hans von Spakovsky. Yes. And if you missed that, please go check out the Vince Colonnais Show podcast, and you can hear the legal rationale for why all of this works perfectly. It is perfectly legal. In fact, Hans brought up a great example as he was talking about this. He said, you know those focus groups that people have on the various cable networks and focus groups for politics? One of the preconditions to join a focus group is that you have to be a registered voter because obviously they want to speak to registered voters when they do these political focus groups. Is that illegal? Is that illegal to do that? No, it is not illegal. So here we go. Today, CNN, a guy called Marshall Cohen, a CNN reporter, he tweets the following. Just in, the Justice Department has sent a letter to Elon Musk's super PAC warning that his daily $1 million giveaway to registered voters in swing states might violate federal laws, sources tell CNN. It's illegal to incentivize registration with cash or prizes. Now, notice how squirrely the language is here. It might violate the law. A sternly worded letter sent by the Biden-Harris Justice Department saying it may be illegal. Now, is this a normal practice at the Justice Department? Do they normally send you letters in advance that give you the old finger wag? This might be illegal. No, normally you see charges, right? That's usually the first thing is that when you find out you're being prosecuted. That's not what's going on here. The Justice Department, let me read from the actual CNN piece now. The Justice Department warned Elon Musk's America PAC in recent days that his $1 million sweepstakes to registered voters in swing states may violate federal law. People briefed on the matter told CNN. Musk, who has thrown his support behind former President Donald Trump and is spending millions of dollars supporting his candidacy, has publicized the $1 million prize by his political action committee aiming to increase voter registrations in hotly contested states. Musk's initial promise to pay prizes to registered voters immediately raised concerns from election law experts, fake election law experts. These are phonies. and some state officials who questioned whether it ran afoul of the law. Federal law bars paying people to register to vote. That's not what Elon's doing. That is not what Elon's doing. The language of the petition currently promises $1 million prizes to people chosen at random for signing a petition in support of First and Second Amendment freedoms. But to sign the petition, you must be registered to vote in specific states. A letter from the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, which investigates potential election-related law violations, went to Musk's Political Action Committee, according to people briefed on the matter. CNN has reached out seeking comment from Musk. Several email addresses listed on the Super PAC's website, the group's treasurer, and Musk's press team at the X platform, the Justice Department, declined to comment. So what are we looking at here? Well, one, we're looking at a CNN article which has inverted who the bad guy is. The CNN article is credulously running with this idea that the Justice Department is just some sort of neutral observer, that they're wearing pinstripes on the football field, that they're calling penalties, pick your analogy, calling strikes and balls. They're the umpire. That's what they're up to. The justice is blind, that, that Elon Musk, he may be doing something dastardly. Even the Justice Department says it. That's the frame up we're getting from CNN right now. You ready for the real story? The Biden-Harris administration is once again abusing its power. The Justice Department is sending threatening letters to one of Donald Trump's most well-known backers. Has the Justice Department sent a threatening letter to Lauren Powell Jobs for the way that she's using the Atlantic right now to attack Trump on behalf of Kamala Harris? Has that gone out? Anything like that? Are they attacking any of the Democrat billionaires who are supporting Kamala Harris's candidacy? Bill Gates, are they attacking him? He just came out this week, and he's throwing a lot of money at getting Kamala elected. Are they sending him stern letters warning him to be careful about his engagement? You know, the Tom Steyers, the Michael Bloombergs, the George Soroses of the world, are they sending letters? No, of course not. Instead, they're targeting Elon Musk, one of the most innovative and important Americans of our time. They're going after him because he's not on board with the regime. So here you have the Biden-Harris administration once again abusing its power, its control over the United States Department of Justice in order to meddle in the election, to, at the very least, create headlines designed to cast aspersions on Donald Trump and the people in his orbit. Have we seen this before? Oh, yes, we have. Remember those briefings? You remember the beginning of the Trump administration? Donald Trump was given a briefing about a Russian dossier containing all sorts of awful things. And then what happens? Remember that all these guys were talking amongst themselves. James Clapper, James Comey, they were saying, CNN needs a hook to run with this. Do you remember all of this? They need a hook to run with this story. They don't have a hook. Well, they didn't, not until James Comey went to Trump Tower and briefed Donald Trump on the contents of the Steele dossier. And then they had their hook, didn't they? What news outlet was it that first broke that story? Anybody remember? It was CNN. It was CNN. It was the same cast of characters. This is getting too easy. They're making it way too easy for me. Do you remember that, Corey? CNN, the first to break the Steele dossier story. BuzzFeed was the first to publish the Steele dossier in full. And here's CNN again with some information. They're just a neutral observer. They're an outside party watching all of this. They found out, the Justice Department is merely warning Elon Musk that he may be violating the law by giving $1 million to people who signed the petition. No, this is tyrannical behavior on the part of the United States Department of Justice. That's the real story. And if CNN was actually practicing journalism, they would make that the lead. But they're not. Instead, they're carrying water for the Biden-Harris administration, the Kamala Harris campaign, and the abuse of power that continues there. And this comes at the same time as Kamala Harris is saying that it's Donald Trump who would abuse his power, that Donald Trump would arrest his political opponents, that Donald Trump would mobilize the military to, what did she say today? Kill Americans in the United States of America, just killing journalists and judges and election officials. This is the garbage she said today, creating this permission structure for crazy people to try and take another shot at him in these final 13 days of the election. How awful is she? How awful. So we've got this story today. Justice Department now warns Elon Musk his effort to get people to support the First and Second Amendment may be in violation of the law. Maybe in violation of the law. Let me see here. I've got a lot coming in. Keith in Vienna now, line 7. Hello, Keith. You're on the Vince Coglianese show.
Hey, how you doing there?
Good, Keith.
Yeah, obviously, these are markers that are evidence or demonstrate that they know they're in big trouble, and they're going to do anything they can, no matter how outrageous. And the next thing you're going to hear about is that, Trump probably molested some Girl Scouts, kicked a few dogs, and beat up a nun. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, everything's on the table now. There is no low to which there's no bottom to this. They're gonna go as crazy as they possibly can. I mean, and it was expressed in part yesterday, Keith, by President Biden himself, who went out for a campaign event with Bernie Sanders. What a weird event that was. And let me play the audio here. Stay with me, Keith. Here's Joe Biden yesterday in New Hampshire.
He's talking. He means it. This is not a joke. This is a guy who also wants to replace every civil servant, every single one. Thinks he has a right under the Supreme Court ruling on immunity to be able, if need be, if it was the case, to actually physically eliminate, shoot, kill someone who he believes to be a threat to him. I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up.
So what President Biden said there is that President Trump is going to shoot Americans. That's what he led with. He said that we've got to lock him up. And then he realized that what he was saying sounded an awful lot like what he was accusing Donald Trump of. So he attempted to walk it back. But before he even had a chance to walk it back with his little, politically lock him up, you heard the room. Those aren't just random people. Those are Democrat Party officials in New Hampshire. And they were applauding like crazy when Biden said, we've got to lock him up, Keith. So there really is no limit here.
I didn't know that they were actually officials. I just thought it was a crowd. That's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, they were New Hampshire. It was a DNC office in Concord, New Hampshire, and he was speaking to party officials, and they gave him a very loud round of applause when he said that what we need to do is lock up our political opponent.
Yep, they are very, very desperate.
Yeah, it's too much. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate the call. Right. That's Keith in Vienna. Let's see here. Tom, Annandale, line 5. Tom, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese show.
Thanks for taking my call. I just want to have a little trip down memory lane. The last time we were a couple weeks out in the establishment/military industrial complex, et cetera, didn't like the polling. We got the 51 supposed beyond repute intelligence officials signing off that Hunter's laptop with all the corruption on it was Russian.
Yes, exactly right.
These people will do and say anything. And heck, some of them are literally professional liars on supposedly working for our interest, and it certainly is not in our interest when they're doing it to change elections.
Well, John Brennan comes to mind. That's exactly the kind of guy you're talking about, and the people who are basically, you have CIA officials whose job is supposed to be involved in gathering intelligence in foreign countries, instead running political interference operations here in the United States of America, and that's what that letter represented. In fact, there were active CIA officials who were involved in assembling that letter in the first place. We've now learned over the many years since it took place. So, if you're concerned about that, you should be on guard for what's happening right now.
I have a wild theory, Vince. I don't know if you might need to cut me on this, but they either want the They either want the wars to continue and or escalate, or they don't want the Epstein client list published and or both.
Well, that's not – I wouldn't cut you at all on that. Neither of those theories is all that wild, actually. In fact, I do question the motives of some of the billionaires who are supporting Kamala Harris for the very reason you just laid out, the Epstein client list. Some of the richest people in the world. We had a caller earlier who pointed out that Lauren Powell Jobs was close with Ghislaine Maxwell. We know Bill Gates was close with Jeffrey Epstein. His divorce was predicated in part on that. Those are not new pieces of information. And who was it the other day? Oh, I don't have the audio in front of me, but I'll just summarize it. Elon Musk told Tucker Carlson that he thinks that Reid Hoffman, who supports, of course, Kamala Harris and stopping Trump at all costs, he thinks Reid Hoffman is concerned about the Jeffrey Epstein list getting out. Now, I have nothing to base that on other than Elon Musk is in a much better position to know that than I would. That's all I know. But that's not the craziest theory I've heard. In other words, Tom.
Thanks, Vin.
Yes, sir. That's Tom and Annandale making an excellent point. In fact, let me in a moment I'll play some more audio for you. There's a rumor. The rumor mill is all going crazy. There's a number of people in journalism right now who claim that they've received a tip of some kind that will end Donald Trump's campaign entirely. That'll end it entirely. This is, buckle up. We are just in for the wildest 13 days remaining in this election, and perhaps beyond that. And I want to play some of what we know about these allegations that are flying around that I guarantee are just garbage. But 451. The political journalist Mark Halperin said, now, I think it was 2 nights ago, he said, oh, there's a story out there. I can't tell you what it is, but I've been pitched a story that would end the Trump campaign today. What? Halperin clarified this morning.
And the point I was making is there's all sorts of things being floated out there. Maybe Jeffrey Goldberg just happened to finish the story 2 weeks before the election. I'm sure Sean will have a point of view about that. I know of one story that's been pitched to a major newspaper and to me, and for all I know to many others, that I don't believe is true. But if it's true, as I said yesterday, it would end Donald Trump's campaign. Just as if the accusations now thoroughly debunked and attributed by American intelligence to Russia about Tim Walz, if those were true, it would end his campaign. What we're seeing in the final days, is a point I was making, is actors who want a certain outcome are on social media and in pitches to reporters, and in the case of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg writing himself, are trying to affect the end of the race because they're so desperate to try to pull a Comey. I'm not pursuing the story. I don't think it's true. People in Mar-a-Lago, calm down. All I'm saying is there are people out there pitching stuff.
You know, I will say, I guess on one hand, I do want to know that there's a lot of dirty tricks being played behind the scenes. On another, isn't it wildly irresponsible to say, hey, I know something you don't, and it could end Trump's campaign, but sorry, I can't tell you what it is, and I don't really believe it. What are you doing? I'm not really feeling that. Coming up, Theo Wald helps us tear down another lie being pushed by the press today. And then Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, coming up in the next hour or two.